Welcome to Spiritual Calisthenics. Christ is in our midst. On November 6th, we commemorate St. Paul the Confessor, Patriarch of Constantinople, as well as St. Luke the Monk of Taormina. Regarding St. Paul the Confessor, Patriarch of Constantinople, St. Paul was from Thessaloniki. He became the secretary of Alexander, Patriarch of Constantinople, a deacon, and then the successor of St. Alexander in about 337. Because of his virtue, his eloquence in teaching, and his zeal for orthodoxy, the Arians hated and feared him. When the Arian Emperor Constantius was in Antioch, learned of Paul's election, he exiled Paul and proclaimed the Arian Eusebius Patriarch. St. Paul went to Rome, where he found St. Athanasius the Great, also in exile. Provided with letters by Pope Julius, Paul returned to Constantinople, and after the death of Eusebius in 342, ascended again his rightful throne. The Arians, meanwhile, elected Macedonius because he rejected the Son's consubstantiality with the Father and the divinity of the Holy Spirit besides. When Constantius, yet at Antioch, learned of Paul's return, sent troops to Constantinople to drive Paul out. The saint returned to Rome, where St. Athanasius also was again in exile. Constans, Emperor of the West, Constantius' brother, but Orthodox, wrote to Constantius that if Athanasius and Paul were not allowed to return to their sees, he would come with troops to restore them himself. So Paul again returned to his throne. After the death of Constans, however, Constantius had Paul deposed. Because of the love of the people for St. Paul, Philip the prefect, who was sent for him, was compelled to arrest him secretly to avoid a sedition. Paul was banished to Caucasus, on the border of Cilicia and Armenia, a town through which his most illustrious successor, St. John Chrysostom, would also pass on his way to Comana in his last exile. In Caucasus, about the year 350, as St. Paul was celebrating the divine liturgy in the little house where he was a prisoner, the Arians strangled him with his own Omophorion. So much did they fear him, even in exile. His holy relics were brought back to Constantinople with honor by the Emperor Theodosius the Great. Your confession of the one divine faith showed you the Church to be a new Paul, and a zealot among priests, O Holy One. The righteous blood both of Abel and Zachary, with you do cry out together unto the Lord. Righteous Father, intercede with Christ God in our behalf, that his great mercy may be granted unto us. You shone on earth a star bright with celestial light, and now you do shine enlightenment on all the church, in behalf of which you did struggle, laying down your own life, O Paul, and like Abel and Zachary, your blood does cry out most clearly to the Lord. From St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews, Brethren, we have such a high priest, one who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the Majesty in heaven, a minister in the sanctuary and the true tent, which is set up not by man, but by the Lord. For every high priest is appointed to offer gifts and sacrifices, hence it is necessary for this priest also to have something to offer. Now, if he were on earth, he would not be a priest at all, because there are priests who offer gifts according to the law. They serve a copy and a shadow of the heavenly sanctuary. For when Moses was about to erect the tent, he was instructed by God, saying, See that you make everything according to the pattern which was shown to you on the mountain. But as it is, he has obtained a ministry which is as much more excellent than the old as the covenant he mediates is better, so that it is enacted on better promises. So in other words, Christ our God, our true high priest, is the model by which all others are to follow. In the Gospel according to St. Luke, the Lord said to his disciples, Everyone who acknowledges me before men, the Son of Man will also acknowledge before the angels of God. But he who denies me before men will be denied before the angels of God. And everyone who speaks a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven. But he who blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven. For when they bring you before the synagogues and the rulers and the authorities, do not be anxious how or what you are to answer, or what you are to say. The Holy Spirit will teach you in that very hour what you ought to say. It is amazing to me because when we think of the persons of St. Paul, the Confessor, of St. John Chrysostom, we think that they lived rich and easy lives, but the reality is not so simple. Many of the great Orthodox hierarchs were cast out multiple times for standing up for the truth. May we also try to emulate them in their patience, their courage, and their steadfastness to Christ our God. I hope that you've enjoyed today's Spiritual Calisthenics. Have a blessed and wonderful day.